Oh, okay. Can we, good afternoon and welcome to the September 13th Civil Service Commission meeting. Can we have roll call, please?
Commissioner Devine?
Commissioner Devine.
Commissioner Devine is present.
We sort of got a head start.
Commissioner Gazarian?
Cameras came on.
Here.
Commissioner Abkarian?
Here.
Commissioner McCarley?
Here.
Chairman O'Kinn.
Here.
For the record, Commissioner Gazarian is absent.
Okay, what's next?
Minutes for the meeting of August 9, 2017.
Do I have a motion?
Move to approve.
I don't have a motion.
Move to approve.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, can we have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Devine?
Yes.
Commissioner Abkarian?
Staying.
Commissioner McCarley?
Yes, aye.
Chairman O'Kinn.
Yes. What's next?
Oral communications.
I have no cards. What's next?
Recruitment and examination report.
Mr. Doyle.
Mr. Chair, members of the Commission, this item is a recruitment and examination workload status report. This is the recruitment activity by each member of my staff. The report lists the position being recruited for, the type of recruitment, whether it's open or promotional, the department, filing periods, and the dates of any exams. So you can see it's a big list. It's actually longer than it had been previously. We've been keeping around 50 to 60 total processes, but right now we're up to 76. And it's just, I think it's a function of the time of the year following budget where not so much that it's new positions have been approved, but some reallocations of different positions involving promotional exams and things like that. And we do have some vacancies and resignations and retirements and things like that. So anyway, this report is here for your information only. It's a note and file. If anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to try and answer those for you.
Any questions?
I just have a quick question. Each person is assigned to particular departments. Is that what it is? Because let's say Angela Abramian has like 26, and then Anahit Navarro only has 3. Is there each person has separate departments that they specifically handle those departments?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, Commissioner Abkarian, for the most part, that's how my department is organized. The more experienced staff members do have their own departments where they handle all of the work for them. So Miss Abramian, for example, has the City Attorney's Office, Community Services and Parks, Finance, Information Services, and Library Arts and Culture. Mr. Nersessian, you see, has the City Manager's Office, Treasury, and 2 really big ones, Water and Power. The less senior members of my staff, and that would be Ms. Navarro and Mr. Vardanian, they're just kind of getting their feet wet with the recruitment, so they're taking on some spillover from the other staff. So that's why you see typically a smaller list for those 2 staff members. For the most part, it's we try to keep it relatively balanced. So.
Let the record show that Commissioner Gazarian has joined us. Any other questions? Okay. What's next?
Eligible list established.
Mr. Doyle.
Mr. Chair, members of the Commission, this report is also a note and file, and it's the reflection of the eligible lists that have been established since our last meeting. As you can see from the report, we have 9 lists that have taken effect. 4 of them open. It looks like 5 that are promotional. As usual, you see the open lists have the higher numbers of applications, and you see several of the police officer positions that we've done, and the police communications operator list. We tend to get large numbers. This most recent administration of police officer recruit, 733 applications, and may sound like a lot, but we'd frankly like to have more than that. But we're continuing to recruit on a frequent basis every couple of months. We've done some really high volume, high frequency accelerated processes where we try to do multiple processes all in one day. So we may do the written and the physical agility all in one day. And a lot of the challenge we have is just getting people who have applied to simply show up.
But I've never seen a police the numbers to be that high. I mean, that's good. Don't go-
It's a good
Normally,
sign.
that fire department is the one that we see high numbers.
This is
That's
true.
a very good number.
And we try to do a couple of these each year. But again, getting people to actually show up and participate in the exam has been a challenge. And as you can see, out of for that open police officer recruit, 733 applicants, we ended up after all the exam processes with a list of 12, and that's before we do backgrounds.
I was going to ask you that. The background starts obviously after this point, right?
Yes, they
You
have to
don't do
make it through the list, and unfortunately, we'll probably lose more than half of that group. It's just the reality of.
How many people actually showed up of the 733 that you called? Half showed up at least?
It's typically half or less than half, but
Still
far less than half, 200. So it's a challenge in this day and age. But every agency I know of, every police department has the same issues, trying to find those good candidates for public safety. And once you get them in the door, getting them to pass the background is another challenge. So.
Okay. Any other questions? Any questions?
Yeah, I have a request. If we can get a report next time of the makeup of those 733, how many, Armenians, Koreans, Hispanic, if possible, and just kind of how many of those 12 same makeup. So I want to get a report on that if possible.
On ethnicity and gender, you're asking?
Ethnicity.
Ethnicity, okay. All right. Well,
I'd like to see gender on there too as mine.
Gender as well, yeah.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. What's next?
Job bulletins for approval. Principal Library Arts and Culture Administrator, Marketing, and Librarian Specialist, Brand Library and Arts Center.
Mr. Doyle.
Mr. Chair, members of the Commission, this is an item for the Commission's approval. Typically, what we bring to you are job specifications for approval, whether they're new or revised. In this case, in fact, tonight we have a couple of actual job bulletins. And as I've said before, not all the job bulletins are required to come before the Commission. There are some exceptions to that, and this happens to be one of them. In this case, we're obligated to bring a bulletin for your approval if it has been recruited for previously on a promotional basis. If the effort by the department is to make it an open recruitment, and it's more or less a safeguard for our own employees if they have some concern or objection to us doing an open recruitment when it had been done promotionally before. They would have the ability to object to that. In this case, these are two positions from the library department, and two separate bulletins. One of them is a rather unique position. It's the Principal Library and Arts and Culture Administrator for our marketing program within the library, and it's an extremely specialized position. It does marketing and providing staff support to our Arts and Culture Commission. We were able to fill it before promotionally, but in this case, we just don't have anyone with that specialty within the library department or within the city, to our knowledge. So we're requesting that this be open. The second one is a librarian specialist, and this is a position, a professional library position just above the entry-level librarian position, which will be stationed at our Brand Library, which you're all familiar with, I'm sure. It's a center for our art and music specialty, and once again, we're looking for somebody with that kind of a background to serve as the librarian specialist there. So, as I said, we often prefer to provide promotional opportunities for our own employees, but when that skill set doesn't exist internally, we have to go to the outside, and that's what we're proposing to do here. This action does require Commission approval, and if you have questions, I'd be happy to try and answer them. And Cindy Cleary, our library director, is here, as is Angela Abramian from my staff.
Chair,
Yes, sir.
if I may, Mr. Doyle, you indicated that not all positions within the Glendale Civil Service require approval of the job postings, job bulletins. first question is, what is the basis for discriminating between those positions that require posting and those positions that do not? Is that as a consequence of an ordinance, or is it an internal rule regulation that was adopted and implemented through your office?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner McCarley, the statement I made, if I could clarify, is not all bulletins are required to come before the Commission for approval. All of our bulletins do get posted publicly.
It's really a question of coming before us as a board. Not that we want to forsake work, but on the other hand, this appears to be something at the administrative level.
No, sir. It's a reflection of the civil service rules and regulations as far as which ones are required to come before the Commission, and those are as in this case, anything that's been posted promotionally that we're making open. Meaning promotional means it's limited to internal candidates, people who already work at the city.
That's the internal piece.
Correct.
That's the discriminator. And if I can enunciate the requirement, if I were to look through and ascertain which particular regulation affects this process, is that these were fundamentally promotional opportunities that have now gone to an open procurement of human capital?
That's correct. And that would be one of the...
within the Glendale Civil Service regulations.
That's correct.
So if we were to propose for the adoption by the council as an elimination of that particular administrative function, that would be something that we, within our authority, could at least adopt and push to the council.
That's correct. That would mean an amendment to the rules, which would require the approval of this body as well as the city council. So, and again, that's one factor. Another factor in bulletins coming before you are any executive recruitments that we would post publicly have to come before you. Safety promotionals, and we have a couple of those tonight, as well as a couple other circumstances which I'd have to refresh my memory on. But
any other questions? Any questions
Just to
regarding this matter?
Just to clarify, I think we're going to have the rules and regulation coming for amendments.
Good.
Sometime.
Okay, but regarding this this particular posting, was there any questions on this?
I move for approval.
Second. Can we have roll call?
Commissioner Devine,
Yes.
Commissioner Gazarian,
Yes.
Commissioner Afkarian,
Yes.
Commissioner McCarley,
Yes.
Chairman Nukian.
Yes. What's next?
Job
We can
bulletin
talk
for
about
approval.
that on the Commissioner comment section, but I just wanted to get these out of the way. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Job bulletins for approval. Fire Battalion Chief.
Mr. Doyle.
Mr. Chair, members of the Commission, this is another job bulletin for approval. This is Fire Battalion Chief. As I said earlier, not all of these do come before the Commission, but this is a circumstance where a bulletin is required, and that is because this is a safety promotional recruitment process. The Fire Battalion Chief is it's the first level of promotion into management within the fire department structure. Our pool of candidates is going to be the approximately, I believe it's about 39 fire captains who currently work for the city within the organization. The battalion chief more or less oversees an entire shift or battalion, so to speak, which is essentially makes up 9 fire stations, as well as all the personnel that operate within those stations on a particular shift. So when there's a major incident occurring, the fire battalion chief is more or less the person in charge. They don't go out on every single call, but on the big ones, they do, and they have to make all the tactical decisions relating to that.
You know, one thing that, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, that would be helpful, I think, and we might have talked about this previously, is the structure of the fire, to this day, after so many years of being on this commission, I still don't completely understand the internal structure of the fire department, because it's so different, like a battalion chief, fire, I mean, is there any way we can one day get a tree or that shows the structure It'd be very helpful, at least for me.
Chair,
I'm sorry,
yeah,
I didn't mean to cut you off.
We could absolutely do that. I'm sure Chief Fish is here. You could, if the commission would indulge him, I'm sure he'd be happy to go over it. But if you'd like to see something more elaborate in writing,
that just shows exactly because like a captain in the police department is totally different, at least from than. Am I wrong?
That's correct. Yeah, a captain in the police department is a management level position. In the fire department, a captain is a rank and file position who oversees a particular station and personnel, either an engine or a truck at a station, and it's a non-management position. It's GFFA. So
it also now it starts to make a little bit. It is related to each fire station itself. So that's where some of the. Okay.
Each fire station, if it's a station that has just an engine, has a fire captain and usually 2 or 3 firefighters underneath. Well, and there's also an engineer, person who drives the apparatus. There are some stations that have both an engine and a truck, and the engine would have its own captain and crew. The truck would have its own captain and crew at that same station. And that's essentially how we operate. We have 9 stations, and that's how we operate every day of the year. And a battalion chief would be the one in charge of all of those stations for a given shift. So,
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
okay.
Mr. Chair, I do have a follow-up question. So I would assume, based upon that recitation, that the City of Glendale Fire Department has approximately 6 or 7 battalion chiefs.
We have, and I can, Chief.
Certainly, you have a
Chief
resident expert
Yes.
In our audience,
Maybe I'll have him.
but it gives us an idea of the command structure, because I concur with the chairperson that I think it's within our province to request sort of briefings as to these personnel structures that are unique to the police department, unique to the fire department, and I would extend that unique to municipal services at Water and Power.
Mr. Doyle, if I may, that's the type of information that we could supply by email outside of this meeting, so we don't really need to schedule a time for
I
that.
disagree with counsel. When this is a board, and at this particular point, I would suggest that we have the authority to request a briefing if it's an abbreviated situation.
Certainly.
Not that I'm opposed to the use of electronic communications, but there are certain instances in which we want a briefing, or at least I do.
My comment was only that the organizational chart may be supplied to you electronically in
No, that's
advance of a
fine.
meeting.
Yeah, it's part and parcel of having somebody in front of us for the purpose of answering questions.
May I?
Yes, sir.
I'd ask that electronic submissions be made, after which, if Mr. Doyle or you as chair or any other commission member requests that the item be agendized for a briefing, at least I, for one, would be better prepared to ask intelligent questions right now. I appreciate the podium being filled with substance, but I don't have the substance to ask intelligent questions, which I would have an opportunity to do if we got an electronic update and then take it from there. Thank you.
I think for us to get the electronic and then have the ability to hear directly from the chief is phenomenal. Yes, sir.
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, I can give you a quick overview of how the chief structure works within the city of Glendale. The fire chief's at the top, that would be me. I have a deputy chief, 1 deputy chief, and then there are 6 battalion chiefs under the deputy chief. There's 3 that work in operations and 1 that works in the fire marshal's position, 1 that works in EMS, and 1 that works in the training section. And under that,
Chief, because not to cut you off, I think there's been a request for a
Please let
for them.
let the chief finish. I understand. Let just.
I'm going to be going through this again next time. I'm not trying to cut off the chief. I'm just saying that we're going to be repeating this again next meeting. But go ahead, Chief.
Is that okay? Can we, I'm still confused.
I'm here at the pleasure of the commission. Whatever you would like.
I think you're almost done, Chief. I don't think we're going to ask the same setup. I already got that there's a chief, which is you, the deputy chief, and 6 battalion
And 6
chiefs.
battalion
3 on the field, and then you were saying the rest, and then
3 admin chiefs, yes.
There you go.
That's
Okay.
it.
Guys, let the chief finish. That's all we do.
I think that's it. I thought he
That's
was
pretty much it. And
Yes.
then under that is captains, and then the captain's just a first line supervisor. That's it.
And Mr. Chair, just for the purposes of education for somebody who struggles consistently with acquisition of knowledge, we addressed last time the deputy chief who serves at Verdugo as the commander of the Verdugo Integrated Fire Response Cell. That you did not mention, but that is, as we discussed last time, that individual has the authority to step into your shoes if in fact you and the command deputy chief are not in Glendale.
That is correct, yes. You are correct. But again, the deputy chief that runs Verdugo is not, I don't consider that deputy chief to be part of my integrated command staff on a day-to-day basis, because that deputy chief works at the pleasure of the 3 fire chiefs.
Got it.
So.
Okay. Any other questions? We have 3 fire chiefs? I thought
3 fire chiefs from Burbank, Glendale, and Pasadena that oversee the Verdugo Fire Communication Center.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
I move for approval.
Second.
Thank you, sir. Can we have roll call, please?
Commissioner Devine?
Yes.
Commissioner Gazarian?
Yes.
Commissioner Karian?
Yes.
Commissioner McCarley?
Yes.
Chairman Okin?
Yes. Yes, sir.
And Mr. Chair, I just want to clarify that we will bring Chief Fish back for a more thorough examination of the fire
He's
department.
not getting
and
off
its
that
structure.
easy.
So,
Absolutely.
And, Mr.
Assuming
Chair,
he's
we would
available.
request a full and complete PowerPoint briefing.
will do. We aim to please.
At least an hour.
At least an hour, please.
Everybody's having a hard time. All right, what's next?
Job bulletin for approval, fire engineer.
Mr. Dillon.
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, similar to the previous item, this is a bulletin for fire engineer. This is a couple levels down. As this is a safety promotional recruitment process, this does require your approval. This jobs bulletin is consistent with the class specification for fire engineer. This happens to be one of the most challenging exams that we put together. It's got a written portion, but also a practical component of 4 separate items, which each candidate will have to master. That being a pre-check of the apparatus, how to operate a hydrant, how to drive a truck around the city, and how to operate the aerial ladder apparatus. So it's quite extensive, and each candidate will have to pass each phase of that. So with that, if you have questions, Chief Fish is still here, Ms. Hunanian is still here, and I'm still here. So
Thank you for everyone for being here. Any questions? No questions? Do we have a motion?
I move for approval.
Second.
Can we have roll call, please?
Commissioner Devine?
Yes.
Commissioner Gazarian?
Yes.
Commissioner Karian?
Yes.
Commissioner McCarley?
Yes.
Chairman Okin?
Yes, sir. Thank you. What's next?
Reports?
Mr. Chair, the only written report we have is the monthly past due job performance evaluation reports. As you can see, most departments are doing quite well. I'd say the majority have no past dues. There are a couple departments that have first notices. And if you wish to have any questions, be happy to try and answer them for you.
Any questions? Nope.
They said it could not be done.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
One additional thing, we talked about the battalion chief exam and the fire engineer exam, and I know we've extended this to members of the commission in the past, but I believe Commissioner Devine took us up at one point. If there's ever a point where you would like to observe one of these processes in person, please contact my office, and we'd be happy to try and set that up.
I want to drive.
You want to drive?
Yes, Chief, can I drive, Chief? Okay, there you go. Okay.
We anticipate doing both of these exams in the next few months, and it's really quite interesting to see. Particularly, I think Commissioner Devine could articulate how the battalion chief exam occurred and really what they have to do. They get thrown in. All the candidates get thrown into some very, very challenging scenarios where they're given a map and a radio and told command the scene and make all the right calls. So if the commission is ever interested, and we couldn't take everyone because we might have issues with the Brown Act and a quorum, but individually, if you ever want to observe these processes, we'd be happy to allow you to do so. So just contact my office, and we'll see what we can do.
Sounds good. Any other questions? Okay, what's next?
Civil Service Commission, staff comments.
Okay, any comments?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
I want to thank the fire department and the emergency personnel and our police department for their heroic efforts during the fire over the long weekend. I had not in the too distant past an opportunity to see firsthand on my block the life-saving measures utilized by the fire department personnel and the police officers who responded. To see it on such a large scale and to hear firsthand accounts from many people who are near and dear to me who lived in that part of the city and the larger county, if you will, it just makes me in awe of your service, and I want to please, Chief, relay at least mine, and I'm sure my colleagues' gratitude for that. Thank you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Good.
Yeah, I second Mr. Kazarian's note. I won't repeat what he said, but 100% agree with that.
Okay.
Thank you.
What's next?
Closed session, public employee discipline.
I have one comment on Civil Service Commission. Mr. Do you know when we waited because you guys were going through some changes, but we said we're going to bring back rule amendments way back, and you said maybe July, and then we said, okay, that's okay, even a month or two. Now it's kind of September, so I wanted to see if we'll have it this year or maybe next year. I'm not trying to rush you in any way, shape, or form. I just want to get an idea as to, I asked for it in February, I looked at it, and now it's September, and then I just want to find out when we'll have this rule changes or amendments.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Karian, I would say realistically, maybe November, December, something like that. I mean, we've made it through summer budget. I've completed negotiations and things like that. So it's been quite busy, but I think that's realistic. And I think it gets a little tricky because any amendments to these rules do require meet and confer with our employee groups. And I think initially we can sort of brainstorm, because my assumption would be that you would have some ideas for things that we may want to look at. And of course, we always have areas that we might want to look at to improve, and not quite sure how you'd want to do that process. More of a brainstorming versus here's what we think sort of thing.
My understanding was last time we did it, I don't know, 10, 12 years ago, was that we had an amendment back then, and the way we did it was it came to us, everyone brainstormed and made recommendations, and then those recommendations went to the employee association for their comments or negotiations. Then it came back to us again, so it's not a process where we say let's amend it and vote on it and it's over. I think came here, people had a time to review it, we had a chance to make recommendation. If we all agreed to it, then that recommendation went to the employee association for negotiations, and then it came back to us afterwards.
Sort of a two-step
process, yeah.
Okay. And again,
actually three-step, because after we approve it has to go to City Council still.
But if I might continue along the lines of Commissioner Abkarian, we could piecemeal this, understanding that at our particular level we have certain responsibilities as enumerated by the council. On the other hand, our ratification, a proposal and thereafter ratification of an amendment to the civil service rules has relative value. It's of interest, it's got to be circulated, it's got to be reviewed by city council and the variety of civil service associations. That said, we could piecemeal it. So for instance, tonight, it was on the tip of my tongue, for instance, to make a motion, subject, of course, to study, that we would eliminate the requirements for these bulletins for positions that are not deemed at a level sufficient to warrant the sort of review that you're asking us to do. A library technician is makes a huge contribution to the city of Glendale. But on the other hand, the review of a bullet related to a librarian technician doesn't make administrative sense. So that's within our authority. We could make that motion. I don't know if I get a second on it. And then at that point in time, that sort of obligates the department, the HR department, to come forth, and then we would go through the process. All I'm suggesting is that I concur with my fellow commissioner that at a certain point we establish what is a suspense, meaning we want that before us. And that's our responsibility. We're obligated to the council and the council members who have appointed us, and we're the extension and the additional voice on the part of the council.
Certainly. And
So if
again,
you can give us, if the November date is a hard date, then I am absolutely satisfied.
I'll make that priority.
Thank you,
to
sir.
do November. And again, it's as I said, I have items that we have sort of on a list of things, improvements we'd like to make. You may not agree with them. The employee association may not, and you may have some additional ones. So I'd say we would aim for November to have that report and
Perfect.
sort of the list, and then we'll take the next steps from there. And by the way, I do want to clarify the last amendments were from January 2014, so it wasn't that long ago.
Okay.
So we're
But we had-
operating with
we
the
had
The
one
one that I
prior to
recall, I
that.
should have said.
Yeah, the one,
That's right.
there was,
You took
there
a
was
little
another one prior to that.
hiatus. Excuse me?
There was another one that was prior to that, that goes back, I think.
Yeah, if I recall, 2014 was the last one, and prior to that, I believe it was around 2010. Prior to that,
remember at least two
it's every
times.
couple of years we look at it. And,
Okay, all right, perfect. All right, what's next?
Closed session, public employee discipline.
This
So
is gonna-
at this point, we would turn off the cameras. We would ask individuals to leave. We will not be reporting out on this item today. So we'll just wait for everything to turn off.